O'Charlie's was once the poster business of consistent success in the fast food industry, but today it's drowning in an ocean of failures. Welcome to the sweet yet bitter story of O'Charlie's. For O'Charlie's, life started when a retired U.S. Marine Corps major decided his wife's recipes were too good to remain in their family kitchen and decided to take matters into his own hands. When Major Charles H. Watkins Jr. retired from the U.S. Marine Corps in 1963, he had the choice to become a private security officer. However, he decided he was done with soldering. Instead, Watkins had another ambition, and so he decided to become an assistant to popular hotelier Charles Kemen Wilson. Wilson was the founder and chairman of Holiday Inns of America, and Charles soaked in how Wilson ran his business like a dry sponge in the ocean. After 3 years of working with Wilson, in 1966, Charles and his family moved to Nashville, Tennessee, and Charles decided it was time to make something of himself, and so he opened a Shakey's Pizza franchise that same year. But being a franchise owner wasn't enough for the old soldier, so he founded his own restaurant, Al Hurt's Sandwich Saloon. Unfortunately, this restaurant venture only increased his portfolio of failures. Charles left the military, but it didn't leave him. These disappointments were far from capable of killing Charles's drive. In 1971, the old soldier came up with a new idea. The idea was to offer his wife's recipe to the American public. It was a simple idea, but the right one. Charles opened his new restaurant, which he named O'Charlie's after himself. And with the way the man struggled with restaurants in the past, naming one after himself was more like a pat on the back for him on not to giving up. The restaurant sat at 21st Avenue South, across the street from Vanderbilt University in Nashville, and it became an immediate hit among the locals. Everyone loved O'Charlie's and expected it to grow. However, Charles was finally satisfied. He didn't expand his business for more than a decade. And if you like to learn about the history of your favorite eateries, be sure to subscribe for more content like this. The company was stagnant until one day in 1984, David K. Wakel, a former chief executive officer of Shoney's, saw the restaurant's potential. David worked for Shoney's for 23 years, and during that period, he became the president and CEO. But in 1982, he resigned. Why? Because he had a new dream. 2 years after he resigned from Shoney's, he found an opportunity to realize his dream. David bought O'Charlie's restaurant from Charles Watkins. After buying O'Charlie's from Charles, David moved the company to the fast lane. Expansion was all he could think of. In 1987, only 3 years after buying O'Charlie's, David transformed it from a little inn in Nashville to a regional giant in the southeastern USA. The company now had 12 branches located within 200 miles of each other. Regardless, David was far from satisfied. Moreover, David wanted more, and he did get more. Problems. David got more problems. Careful what you wish for, or so the saying goes. David didn't listen. He wasn't careful with what he wished for. David Wakel didn't abandon his position at the peak of Shoney's leadership just to build a 12-unit restaurant chain. He had an unquenchable desire to build a nationwide restaurant chain. But he'll find out desire didn't always mean reality. However, we'll get to that later. David grew the company to a 27-unit restaurant in 1990. To take things to the next level, David had to take the company public, and he did so in July 1990. But that decision came at the wrong time. The reason is simple. The company's timing of its IPO coincided with the first Gulf War, Operation Desert Storm, which started on August 2, 1990, a month after the IPO, and lasted till 17 January 1991. Although the war wasn't the only reason, lots of factors contributed to the failure of the IPO. One of them was the July 1990 to March 1991 national recession. David was so unlucky. Another major factor that affected sales and expansion was the size of the company's menu list. Customers compared it to Leo Tolstoy's novel War and Peace. Things didn't get better, and the company experienced a downturn in sales and profit, and the future didn't look rosy. Still, David didn't relent. He pruned the company's menu list in 1991 and opened 10 new restaurants between 1990 and 1991. And by 1992, things changed for the better, and the company even acquired Logan's Roadhouse restaurant. But in this growth, something surprising happened. David resigned from his role as chairman of the company in 1994. 10 years after buying the company from Charles Watkins, David had gotten another interest and was willing to pursue that. Although you would think he left the chain because he sensed trouble. Just 1 month after David's resignation, the company faced its first discrimination lawsuit. Initially, the company denied anything related to discrimination, but the heat just wouldn't go away, so it had to pay a whopping $6.2 million to settle settle this issue, but still maintained that it only did so because the lawsuit was distracting and not because the company discriminated against its employees. Although it began on a sour note, the post-David Wakel era in O'Charley's wasn't all doom and gloom. In July 1995, Logan's Roadhouse restaurant completed its IPO, and the company got $11 million from the IPO. This extra funding helped the company open 11 new locations, and by early 1997, the company had at least 72 locations. The company grossed over $200 million in sales in 1997. 3 years later, in 1999, the company had over 106 units nationwide. Despite the progress, the unthinkable happened. David Wakel came back. And no, he didn't come back as a company executive. He came back with a buyout offer. David believed the company's future was no longer in the capital market. He wanted to make O'Charley's a private company via a management-led leveraged buyout. This move was the complete opposite of his action in 1990. The man acted like he saw a future no one else saw. However, the company's leadership rejected his offer. Gregory L. Burns, the new CEO and president of the company, had identified a perfect way to facilitate growth: acquisitions. The company acquired Georgia-based Stony River Legendary in 2000 and the 80-unit chain restaurant 99 Restaurant and Pub in 2002. That same year, 2002, the company opened 24 new restaurants and became a 180-unit chain restaurant. Everything worked together for the good of O'Charley's in the 2000s, and recognition came too. The restaurant won Forbes' 200 Best Small Companies in America 3 consecutive years, 2000 to 2002. O'Charley's was at the top of its game, but trouble was brewing in the background. The early 2000s and 2010s were a great time for every stakeholder in O'Charley's. This was a period of growth and expansion for the restaurant. The chain made the papers during that period with several stories of expansion. The company had at least 220 locations at its peak. After it peaked, there was only one other way it could go: down. The chain is now running in the opposite direction of expansion. Well, no, it is not on the path of destruction, at least not entirely. Company executives can't identify the cause of these failures. The company shut down 9 locations in 2019, and by the end of 2023, there were only 67 O'Charley's locations nationwide. That's a mind-blowing 70% decrease in just 4 years. Listen, although O'Charley's executive leadership can't point out the cause of its rapid failures, the truth is, everything seems to be working against the company. It is suffering from the evolution of technology. Online shopping led to the downfall of malls, and poof went the traffic the restaurant got from people who shopped at a mall. However, that's only one of the many problems plaguing O'Charley's. Another issue the company dealt with is that taste buds are changing. The American market moved away from bar and grill chain restaurants. In addition, O'Charley's has also cost customer favor, as people who eat there don't have the best dining experience. As a result, the chain doesn't have good reviews on the web. Poor reviews are only part of the problem. There's more. The chain almost killed a person. On an afternoon in 2014, Robert Farrell and his wife visited an O'Charley's restaurant, ordered, and ate. However, Robert began to feel uncomfortable. Apparently, Robert swallowed a shard of glass from one of the meals he ate in the restaurant. The glass shard got hooked in his small intestine, and he had to have surgery. No wonder County Health Department gave the O'Charley's branch at Forsyth, Illinois, a rating of 59 in 2017. Charles Watkins learned the hospitality trade after he retired from the Marine Corps, but he discovered business wasn't as easy as he thought. After becoming a franchise owner and later having his business, the founder couldn't get his restaurant to become a customer favorite. However, in 1971, he founded O'Charley's, and it was a hit. But he refused to grow the business beyond the first location in more than a decade. Charles sold the restaurant to David Wakel in 1984. And he grew the chain. However, David soon ran into troubles and eventually left, only to come back later. The company peaked having over 200 stores, but business has become slow for the chain. Today, the company has only 67 locations nationwide, and good tidings aren't on the horizon. Would the company have avoided its current dilemma if they accepted David's offer in 1999? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to support our channel.